Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 323. Thank you for joining us. Today, Kolbe Advisors Michelle Koechle, Jennifer Thomas, and Sarah Turley join Bonnie and me to discuss approaches to homeschooling and what a day of homeschooling might look like. From schedules and spaces to adjusting to moves and when the unexpected comes up, our guests give us some models for what this can look like and some wisdom on how we can adjust. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Doing well. It's kind of the start of, it feels like it's just the start of summer, even though we're getting close to July here. And schedules are changing, and it's a time of change right now in our household, at least. So pretty interesting.
Yes. Interesting and wonderful and challenging and so many things all at once, right? Yes. Well, I know many of the listeners can relate to that. We have our own version of that going on here, and I'm sure the ladies joining us do as well. We have another installment in our advisor series. Today, we are comparing notes and thinking about the day-to-day homeschool life. And I don't know if it's kind of cheesy, but I might go so far as to say like ordinary time of homeschool life, like day-to-day. Okay. So with us are three of Kolbe Academy's family advisors, Michelle Koechle, Jennifer Thomas, and Sarah Turley. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey. Glad to have you all with us. Over the run of our more than 300 Kolbecast episodes, we've gotten to visit with many of the advisors, which we enjoy very much, and always appreciate the wisdom and experience they share with us. This particular advisor series I referenced began with episode 313, which you can find a little ways back in your podcast feed, and I'll also link the episode in the show notes. So one of these ladies has been with us before on the Kolbecast. Jennifer, how have you been since we last spoke?
I've been really well. My family, we moved to Tulsa, and so that's a big change, right after Easter. So sorry to all the families that, had to wait, extra couple days to hear back from me in emails, but we're settling in, and it seemed like the perfect time to make the big move, so we had summer off.
Well, hope all is getting well, getting settled into your new place, and I bet a lot of folks are doing that, making the move this summer. And so I know there's a lot that goes into that, and I'm sure that will factor heavily into kind of getting going with your next school year too. So I'm eager to hear more about that as you want to share with us as we keep on talking. So joining us for the first time on the Kolbecast are Michelle Koechle and Sarah Turley. So let's get to know them a little bit. I'm going to start with you, Michelle. Would you tell us about yourself, your background, your homeschooling and Kolbe connection and such things?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, I have 4 kids, ranging in age from 11 down to 5. This past year actually was our first year homeschooling. I homeschooled my oldest daughter, and we absolutely just loved our experience with Kolbe Academy. We loved it so much that not only did I end up applying for a job and joining the advising team, but we're also bringing my middle 2 children to homeschool with Kolbe this upcoming year. So I'm actually in a really interesting season right now because last year I had a great routine with just my oldest daughter. It was just the 2 of us at home and my husband who also works from home. And we, had this really good rhythm. But this year is going to look completely different because I'm adding 2 more students to our homeschool. So, that'll be interesting teaching multiple ages and, figuring out new routines and everything. So my youngest is going to stay in our local public school this coming year because we absolutely love our local first grade teacher. But then after that, the plan is to bring him home for the 2027-2028 school year, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been really great to have the 2 different perspectives of Kolbe now, not only just homeschooling, but now on the other side of it, working here as well.
I think that's hugely helpful. Like to have all of that range like that, it brings so much. You're able to relate to folks wherever they are in all their various experiences, and what a gift. Good deal.
Yeah.
And it just I think it, as with so many things, you kind of get a rhythm going and you kind of figure something out, and then something changes, as that's how this goes, right? So it's helpful to hear that that's happening
Definitely.
to you, and kind of, okay, you can do that, and so can I. And so far, do you have any kind of standout memories of your homeschooling experience so far, or sort of when you think of homeschooling, kind of your experience, kind of what comes to mind?
Yeah. So my favorite memory, especially now that my families are going through enrollment and course registration, I have a lot of new to Kolbe families, and I love hearing their stories and just kind of viewing how nervous they are. So I'm getting a lot of emails from them just because they don't know how to navigate yet. And so that has brought upon my own memories of how when I didn't know. And so I've told them that all you have to do is just wait because things will all come together. And I remember that. I remember being so nervous when I first started last year, but then everything just kind of came together. We got started, and it's like one piece of the puzzle gets solved one week, and then the next week, and then the next week. And then pretty soon you're in a rhythm and you're just doing it. And it's so much fun. And then it's great. I mean, we've loved it. So yeah.
Your story has me really excited though, Michelle, because I mean, I've had this experience of all of my kids, five between 22 and 11 going through the home and having everybody here all the time, and been working at home for the last 5 years. So it's going to be kind of exciting for you to see that different, like you said, that different rhythm, that different pattern. But like, here at home, in the morning, I turn around and here's a child coming down to make some breakfast or whatever. And you just get those regular interactions that you don't get when people are out of the home, for 8 hours during the day. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes for you.
Yeah, we're really excited to have them at home. So we're really excited right now that it's summer, and so everyone's home, and it's a little chaotic getting into that new rhythm, but I just love it. So I every year prior to this, I was always so sad to see them off, So homeschooling definitely was a fit for us.
It's good things to come. Good deal. All right, Sarah, your turn. Help us get to know you a bit.
Hi, it's nice to meet everybody. I have three daughters. I have a junior high school seventh grader, a rising fourth grader, and a preschooler. We've been homeschooling since 2019. We were a part of the kindergarten COVID camp. So we had that experience. We were actually living overseas, and my oldest daughter was in a Department of Defense school, public school. So we've had several experiences. We did 1 year of private school, so we had that experience as well. So we've kind of had a variety of experiences. I have two children with dyslexia. So that's been a big part of our homeschooling journey. Homeschooling's been a great fit for that. We ultimately came to that conclusion as well. And then homeschooling has also been a huge part of our faith journey. So through homeschooling, our family actually has come into the full communion with the church. So I thank homeschooling for that, because I don't know, God has his way of taking care of everything, but I do know that homeschooling has been a huge part of our conversion. So that's a little bit, that could be like a whole separate podcast though. So
Yeah.
We're a military family. We move around a lot. And we just love Kolbe. We love everything about Kolbe. It's been so great. We've used the student services department, and our daughters just have benefited so much from traditional homeschool, asynchronous, and we're going to be trying some of the live online next year. So we've done a variety of things, and homeschooling is just so beautiful.
I'm so glad it's been that way for you. And yes, I'm making notes over here because lots of jumping off points for conversations both today and in the future. So wonderful to hear that has been your experience so far. I know we have a lot of military families. So when you think of your family's homeschooling experience so far, is there like a standout or one or two memories or kind of experiences that come to mind so far?
Gosh, there's really so many.
Yeah.
Obviously the faith part is the number one. And then I just think about the relationships that my daughters have and that we have as a family, that I'm not sure it would look the same if we were schooling in a different way. Obviously, I know that there's strong family relationships with people who school in a variety of different methods, whether it be public, private. But I do think in our unique situation with moving around so much that homeschooling, my favorite thing about it, or the best memory, is just spending that time with them and them always knowing that they have each other. So we've had some difficult moves where we've left friends, we've left family, we've been far away, but at the end of the day, they always know that they have each other, and their relationship is so strong and so close that I think that's the most important or biggest memory that we continue to make. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. So important. And not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when people contemplate homeschooling. That, and I think it's becoming more of a thing. People realize that, and they'll hear folks talk about that very thing, about the relationships among the family members being some of the greatest blessings to come out of it. But I don't know that it is necessarily where your mind goes initially when you think about the schooling choice. All right. Well, would you be up for, Sarah, telling us about what a typical day or week looks like in your house when school is, like, once it's kind of leveled off to use sort of an aviation analogy, you've gotten the school year off the ground a bit, and it's kind of and you're in your groove, such as if such as it is.
For my daughters, they do better if we can get most of the school done in the morning time. So we typically try to structure our day in a way that accommodates that. So I would say like a typical, like when everything is going in a way that you would like hope for it to go, we would typically do our school in the morning time. And then in the afternoon is typically when I would work. And then they would have some more independent things to work on. But realistically, it doesn't always work out that way. So another typical homeschool week would look like us plugging in things in places where I can help them be more hands-on. And then when I'm not as able to be as hands-on, they're working on more independent work or working on something more creative that they would like to do, just to kind of fit everyone's schedule. And we do like to, one thing we've incorporated this year is kind of shifting our schedule so we can attend a daily mass here or there. So that is awesome as well. That's been like a new priority for us. So we're hoping to incorporate that next year as well.
Yep. Yeah. It seems I'm glad you mentioned, as we talk about the typical days, like, I don't know that there is a typical day. And as soon as we kind of have it in mind, what we'd like it to look like. And then we have to have all those caveats, like, yeah, this is ideal or typical. And so many things happen that.
Right. And then you throw a toddler or a preschooler into the mix, and it's like your whole plan can just like turn on a dime. So like, so it's just kind of that they would prefer to do their school in the morning, and they're getting older now. So there is, a little bit more that they can do on their own. And then of course, if you're incorporating different types of ways you homeschool, so whether it be like online or asynchronous, those are plugged in at different times. So that varies from school year to school year. But if we had a preference, our typical day would be morning school, afternoon, a little bit more free time, a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah. And it sounds like they have a good sense of, if you're not, like, you have a sort of a routine or framework that you work from. And then when you are not available, they have some go-to things that they can be doing.
Right. And do they always do that? Not always.
Well, there's that.
But there's some good, like opportunities for learning some lessons on, if you don't get your work done, then you're going to probably have to work on it at a time that's not as convenient for you.
Yeah.
When you'd rather be doing something else. But, that's typically what it looks like for us, I would say.
With your ages of your children and sort of the variety of ways they're schooling, do you all like start off together? Like, all of us come together for some, like, school's beginning right now by some sign? Or is it like one child gets up and going and she starts her class and then her day has begun, and your other children kind of do their own similar?
I would say we all get started around the same time, but it just looks a little bit different with the girls having dyslexia. There's a lot more one-on-one time that I need to spend with them on making sure that they, are understanding what to do and how to do it. So oftentimes I'll get one of them started, especially if we're doing something like traditionally in the traditional homeschool format. And then the other one is kind of like reading or playing with their sibling while I'm doing that instructional piece until they can get on their own. And then I'll move on to the other one because the age gaps are I'm so fascinated by families who can like do the one subject for all the kids in different ages. Like that blows my mind. I think it's so cool. I have not been able to do that.
Same.
And I don't know if my brain functions that way. I do better with one-on-one with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how we do it. We stagger so I can make sure that they're getting the instruction they need and then can circle back around and help once they're working independently on their work. So we kind of all get started on school at the same time doing something, but definitely I haven't mastered the art of doing everybody at one time.
That is very relatable.
Yeah. It's like some days you do feel like, am I doing enough? But you are. And that's what I would want to tell families is that like you are doing enough and to give yourself a lot of grace, especially when you're starting out. Because your typical homeschool day is not going to look like my typical homeschool day. It's going to look completely different. Your kids are unique, beautiful, they have their own ways of learning. So what works for me might not work for you. But I like to take things from different people and try them out and see if it does work for us.
Yeah, definitely. The reassurance of that. And you don't have to have it figured out immediately. If school starts and you've got it all figured out, no. That's great if so, but also okay if not. Yeah. All right. Jennifer, what about for you? What is a typical the sort of hypothetical, maybe even ideal?
Yeah.
How would you like that to look? Or what does it sort of look like?
I've shared in the past that our family, we have 4 kids, so my son likes to get up early and get all of his work done. So then he has, the full afternoon to himself. But then I have a daughter who likes to sleep super late, and so she doesn't start school at, 8 in the morning like her brother. She'll start around 10 or 11, whenever works good for her. And as a family, like when we first started homeschooling, I thought, no, we're going to start all at the same time. We're going to do all these activities together. And then just as my kids have gotten older, I've realized that that is not the best situation for them. So I try to figure out where the student, my kiddos need to be. And if they need to sleep a little later, then yeah, they're going to start a little bit later. I'm able to structure it pretty well that way with work at Kolbe. So my son will start early in the morning. And like I said, he's usually done by like noonish. He's a middle schooler, so it kind of depends on how motivated he is that day. And then for my daughters, um, well, I have a new kindergartner this year, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to go. And she'll be doing online, so her day will be a little bit more structured. But we're very much a easygoing family where we have a list of things we've got to do each week. And as long as we are meeting those requirements each week, then I'm happy. I do ask that they spend a certain amount of time each day on school before they go and play outside or, they like video games, that sort of thing. But we're a little bit more laid back with the daily structure.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's nice to have enough of a sense of where you need to be, where you're headed, and enough of that structure to be able to then not have to be down to the minute. Michelle, are you up for telling us about what it looks like at your house?
Yeah, sure. So I love what Sarah was saying about how every family is going to look completely different because so far mine is totally different from both Jennifer and Sarah. So, I mean, our routine was much more chill this past year just because my daughter was 10 turning 11. So she is fairly independent and she's always been a good student. There's been times where definitely I've told her, this math work you're going to do today is, number 1 through 24. And then I go look later and she did 1 through 10. And when I ask what happened to, 11 through 24, she'll say, oh, I didn't know that's what you wanted me to do. So there's some follow through, but for the most part, she would do a really good with me just giving her a checklist. So the night before the upcoming day, I would make basically like math, and then I would say page, such and such, do numbers, whatever, and watch this video. We did digital homeschool with her, and so there was some online resources that we used to help sort of add to the lectures or whatever we needed. And I would structure. So I got my bachelor's in English. So I do not like anything math or science. That's not my thing at all. So I would structure that she was doing math and science in the subjects I didn't really feel as confident in, that she could do that with her dad in the mornings while I have, an advising meeting, or my schedule for it as an advisor was open to family calls and things like that. So I'm getting that done while she's doing those subjects that I'm not particularly interested in overseeing, and I let her dad take that portion. And then after I get off, then that's when she and I would dive into English, because we did classical composition, English 5, and then we also did literature, and those are my subjects. So that's when I want to be there. And I actually, took on the role of being teacher for her and discussing with her. And I would read the books alongside with her. So that way I wasn't just saying what was in the outline or, the course plan. I was actually, we were talking, having conversations about the literature or the text. And same with theology. I really enjoy doing that too. I'm a youth minister for our local parish, so I like doing that as well. So those are what we would say for, after I'm done with advising and that's all taken care of. And so that worked really well for us. We'll see how it goes this upcoming year. Now that I'm adding my middles is what I call them, my middle two. They're going to be doing full-time online. And so I would like to, if we can, kind of stick to kind of their schedule. So I would like my oldest to kind of start doing her school right around when they're going to be online too. I think that would make things a little bit more, I guess, less chaotic, in the sense that while they've got their headset on and they're listening to classes, then she can focus on the things that she's doing. But I'm open to, maybe that's not going to work. We'll see how it goes. So she does, my oldest, she does take orchestra locally. So she, at our local school district, they'll still allow homeschool kids in Arizona, that it's like per the law that homeschool kids have to be allowed to participate in extracurricular. So there's a break in her day where we take her to orchestra, and she's been doing that with our local school district. So I try to get, some of those subjects that I don't enjoy as much done before orchestra, and then after orchestras when I'm also off, and when we dive into the stuff that I just love and that actually she loves too. So that's been working really well. So yeah, so we'll see. I think my middles, they're just going to be thrown to the sharks. Here's your online schedule. You're going to get in there and do it. I think they'll really like it. They've been doing summer courses this year, and they've really liked the teachers. They've been really engaging and everything. And so it's kind of been a way for them to get familiar with, wearing the headset and paying attention to a computer, or a person behind the computer. So, but I'm open to be flexible, and that's the beauty of homeschool, that homeschooling has seasons, and the schedule that works one year may not work the next year. So adding children, changing ages, and even, this last year I added my Kolbe job, and, so that kind of like added some different schedule changes to the mix. So yeah, so it's interesting.
Good stuff. It's just helpful to be able to hear how everybody makes it work in their own household, and then you can kind of draw from what it would work in your own. And yeah, that's one of the great things about having these types of conversations. So there's the schooling that happens, but also the whole life, the functioning of the household, the work that you all do professionally, and also other obligations that you have to your parish, or volunteering, or your household maintenance and meal planning and all that sort of stuff. How does that factor into putting your school day together?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that the great thing about homeschooling is it is not that long of a day, typically, depending on most of the kiddos. And so all of my kids have chores that they do each day. Now that the husband has been home more since he retired from the military, it's been wonderful. He's training them how to do all these chores that has really lightened the load for us as a family in the evenings. So now those things are getting shifted. So it only takes, a kid 15 minutes to put away all of the laundry. And, that's a huge change. So we, factor that in. They'll do their school depending on if they need a break, they're having, a stressful day with school, they're going to go do a chore and get that done. They have a list of things they have to get through each day. And so once that is done, then they kind of are on their own time. They have free time that they do. And so I think it's great to get kids involved more. I was always hesitant. My son, the oldest, is going to be 13. And, for the longest time, he couldn't do laundry. I didn't want him unloading the dishwasher. And then now that we fully embrace like all of the kids helping out more, it is a game changer. So, they're not like servants or anything like that, but they are doing, a little bit of help around the house. And so it's helping our day move smoother. I have more time to spend with them individually, or, I moved to full time at Kolbe. So that just changed kind of the daily structure. So we just needed a little bit help here and there. And the kiddos have really just done well with helping.
Yeah, and it is nice, like Jennifer mentioned that, the day ends pretty quick. Like even with my middles doing full time online, they're going to be done around noon, some days 1. And so I really prioritize outside time when the weather is nice. And so I really like them. I'm really excited for them to be done and for them to be able to just go outside and play for a little while before they start on any homework that they may or may not have. So, I'm looking forward to that. And I agree, with Jennifer with getting the kids involved in helping chores as well. It just makes things go so much smoother. And I think it adds to a child's structure in the day as well. I think we all as humans, especially children, thrive with some kind of structure or routine, even if it's just a checklist, like Jennifer mentioned, that they have to get done by the end of the day or end of the week. It's just something that they're familiar with. And I think that adds to that, having these things. And then also for me, having the reward of, hey, when you're done, you get to go outside and play around. So
It made me think of like when I first started homeschooling and feel the feeling of having to replicate school at home. Like if you're coming from a public school or a brick and mortar setting. So it just made me think, your question made me think of that, of just like allowing yourself to not have to recreate what a traditional, or like what you think school looks like doing formal school at home. Like you can make your homeschool fit what your life work looks like. I've also homeschooled while working like night shift during deployments when your spouse is gone. That's going to look different. And like Jennifer said, and including your kids in those day-to-day things to contribute to the whole household are definitely life skills. So you're really homeschooling 100% of the time because they're learning something from whatever's around them. So even if your homeschool day isn't academically what you thought it was going to look like, or look like what maybe kids in a school brick and mortar setting would look like, they're learning and they're picking up things from whatever. You can really turn anything into a homeschooling lesson. I have definitely gotten more crunchier as the time has gone on, because I was the school at home person and now I am not. So and I have been able to loosen up my reins on that.
well, I think there's beauty behind that too. Like I've personally learned after homeschooling that schedules should serve the family rather than the family serving a schedule, and being hard pressed for the schedule. I think children, like I was saying, benefit from, routines and expectations, but there also has to be room for flexibility and you know, if someone like Jennifer mentioned is stressed out, like just being able to take that break. And that's the beauty of it over a stereotypical brick and mortar schools. So, you know, you realize as a homeschooler that some children work best in the morning. Others need more breaks. Some families thrive with detailed schedules, while others work better with a simple list of priorities. And I think that's okay. It's okay to adjust the schedule if something isn't working, and it's okay to dabble in somebody else's method, like you mentioned, Sarah, and give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then you kick it out and try something different, or you know, stick to what you find works for you.
Probably as a family, it took us a little while because both my wife and I are kind of like, oh, we'll just do it ourselves. And we've got all the littles. You just kind of get used to doing everything. But as the kids are getting older, it's both like, oh, wow, that's off my plate and I don't have to think about it. And then you also see this like pride or a sense of, I mean, they know that we are grateful for what they're doing to help out as well. So you can tell there's just kind of a little bit of pride that, you know, I'm doing something to make life easier for mom and dad here. So it's pretty fun to see. I'm still probably not as good at delegating as I could be, but it's certainly valuable though.
Yeah, and I think it's great to remember too that homeschooling doesn't happen separate from family life. You know, their meals still have to be made, laundry still happens. You know, appointments happen. Sometimes I think involving children in household responsibilities is part of their education. Like Sarah mentioned, they're learning responsibility, service, you know, time management, life skills. And these days when school gets so much more attention, and you know, I think days when family responsibilities take some priority too, that's okay as well. And I think it helps them in the long run.
Yeah, all good stuff. Is there more that you all wanted to say on the whole workspaces thing? You, Michelle, you mentioned when your middle's being an online class, so your older daughter working on her stuff at that time. That's something I think about a lot as well, having multiple kids doing various things, especially when it comes to like exam week. Like I want to try to get everybody to take their exams around the same time so that the household conditions are conducive to focus on whatever. And so we don't have one taking a test while someone else is doing something noisy, whatever.
Like in terms of workspaces, ideally, like my ideal would be that we have a pretty big dining room with a big table. I would love for all of us to be there working together. You know, but I'm open and flexible that just might not work. I think when you think of homeschool, a lot of people picture beautiful shelves and matching desks, but I think learning, you know, really it comes down to it can happen almost anywhere. So, you know, even with just having my oldest home last year, we use the kitchen table sometimes. Sometimes she would do stuff on the couch, you know, her bedroom, quiet corners, sometimes outside, even when the weather is nice. I love doing that. So I don't know. The perfect homeschool room isn't what makes homeschooling successful. I think the goal is to create spaces where children can focus and where family life can happen together. So we'll see. That's like a to be continued for me, because I'm not sure how that's all going to go, if I'm going to have to put each one in a different room for their classes or what. I'm open to what we need. We'll do what we need to do.
It's one of those beautiful things about the homeschooling is you can tailor it to each one of those students, because that's what happens in our family too. It's like some just like to lock themselves away in their room so that they have quiet and peace, and others like if I'm working on a paper, I'm going to come down to the dining room table, so I've got this more formal sort of setting. And then of course the favorite is sitting next to mom while doing whatever it is, as she's might be working away on her computer, and they're just happy to be able to ask a question here and there. But yeah, so each one is a bit different, but they tend to move around depending on what it is they're working on too. So
We're doing something similar to that. So with my daughter going to kindergarten online, it's a huge change for us. My son's done a few online courses, but trying to figure out what that day is going to look like for us. Where am I going to put every child in the house to do this? Because of course she's in kindergarten, she's going to need to be near me. So then maybe my son doing online middle school, maybe he needs to be in the dining room instead of the office. And then, well, then I have two more daughters that are trying to figure out where they're going to fit in the house and do their stuff. So I like to try to plan what they're going to be doing at a certain time. It's not super strict, but if they're going to have a live class, then I need to plan what room they can be in. I don't want to have, my daughter that just woke up and needs some time to run around being next to my son who is trying to pay attention to a live, middle school class. So structuring your day a little bit will help with that. And then I think just knowing like your limitations of your house, where is it quietest for some of those kids that need to really focus? And absolutely, my kid's favorite place to be is right next to me. It doesn't matter if I'm in a work meeting with Kolbe or what I'm doing. They want to be right here, and just so thankful that Kolbe is so family friendly that they understand, we're a homeschooling family as a company. So it's just, they expect kids.
Ours is pretty much the same as well, but I will say that the coveted spot is the spot next to mom. But the coolest thing about homeschooling is you really can do it anywhere. We've moved 4 times in 4 years. So our homeschooling environment has like changed every year for the past 4 years. And the coolest thing about it is you can homeschool in your car, you can homeschool, you can homeschool in pretty much anywhere. We're visiting family right now, and the kids are still working on random things, and they have memories that they've made different places doing things. So I think that's the beauty of it, is it really is, you can do it anywhere.
And it's so fun when Sarah's in town visiting because she's my sister-in-law. So then sometimes the kids are, right next to each other if they're doing something, or, we're working next to each other. And so it's just such a blessing.
It is. And so Jennifer is also my advisor. And I mentioned before that I am a super routine, structured, oriented, like regimented person by nature. Jennifer is the opposite. And the cool thing about it is though is we've been in each other's lives for what, like the past 15, 16 years, and they started homeschooling a little ahead of us. And um just seeing them carry out their faith in the way they homeschool their children has helped me not be so regimented, and they've set an example where where you are doing enough. And like her kids are so bright and they're so sweet. And like to see that play out has been helpful for me as a parent of Kolbe, and then also as an advisor. So it's really cool like to hear about Michelle's experience and other families' experience in the way they homeschool, because you can take a little bit from everybody, and it does help examine yourself, like as a mom, as a parent, like what areas do I need to kind of work on, like where am I being too harsh with and too regimented with the kids? Like where do I need to meet them more where they are and less what I want? Because I think, sometimes we have expectations that are not appropriate. And I've definitely, have done that in times where I have these expectations, but that's not really the way she learns. That's not helpful for her. My oldest is not a super structured, oriented person. So navigating that, some days are harder than others. But being able to see other people and hear from other people's experiences can help you. Have helped me. I don't know. I don't want to speak for somebody else, but have helped me kind of examine areas of improvement where I can do a little bit better job meeting my kids' needs.
I'll share that I think it's so important, even as an advisor. I've been with Kolbe for 2.5 years, I think, but homeschooling for 8. I love to hear all the families tell me about their school day, what works for them. Because I don't know everything. I don't know a lot. And so when they share their little tips about how they make it through their day, if I'm not going to use that, sometimes I tell other families, like, well, this is what's worked for a family I know. And so I think just sharing what's working for your family, share what doesn't work with your family, share it with anybody you know. that's homeschooling, share it with your advisor. It's just helpful. We're all a community.
Oh, it made me think of one conversation that I just had too with a family. If you're just starting out homeschooling, it can feel so overwhelming with all the different curriculum and ways to homeschool online, not online, self-paced, not self-paced, or, digital, not digital. And there's just all these options. And it really is okay to just jump in and pick something and start it, because that's really the only, like, you could really just make yourself so miserable researching and researching and researching, trying to find this perfect thing that really doesn't exist, because it's likely going to change anyways. And I think starting out homeschooling, it just feels so overwhelming, but it really is okay to just pick something and start it, because and to have permission to do that, because I think a lot of people just want somebody to tell them what to do, and that's okay too. It's okay to just be like, I don't know how to start this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to pick it and I'm going to start and I'm going to see what happens. And like Michelle said, the pieces of the puzzle come together. It really does, because a lot of it is trial and error. And one year something may work, and then the next year it doesn't. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fine tuning. That's for sure. Trial and error, like you said. I remember before we started, it was last summer. I met a mom who was also homeschooling, and she told me that I guess I shouldn't say she was homeschooling. She was done homeschooling, and so she had this experience that she had with her kids who were in college, and she talked about how, I remember homeschooling my son on the way to taking my daughter to her volleyball practice. And then during volleyball practice, my son and I were talking about geography right there, in the bleachers, having our session. And even she was like, it was like a 30-minute drive. So I would have him read out loud to me and we would talk about it on the way there and on the way back. So I love that it's so beautiful, the flexibility, and that we can make it work. Like you mentioned, Stephen, that you can adjust it per child, as opposed to trying to prescribe a one size fits all method to the whole family. And it's just so great
that our Kolbe families have people like you as the advisors to kind of call up. And I really would recommend that they do call you all and just even throw out, like you just said, here's what we're doing, here's what's working, here's what's not working. And here you've got somebody to bounce ideas off of, or even get ideas that you might not have thought of. That's like, well, yeah, some people do this, some people do that. You could try these things. That's such a great thing to have, where not everybody necessarily has those experienced homeschoolers right around that they can tap. But once you're part of Kolbe, you've got a whole team of experienced homeschoolers.
For sure. This series is going to continue. We've got several more episodes in the lineup coming up, and we'll be talking about some common pitfalls and stumbling blocks that happen along the way. Let's talk for just a couple of minutes in the time we have left today in this episode about a few of those things. Now we have our structure somewhat sketched out and a routine, everything. Then some of the things that kind of throw that off, and what we can do about that, or what we can kind of prep for. What do you all encounter as advisors when you hear from families? What sorts of things kind of throw them off? Some common things that kind of derail the day.
for us. It's I feel like every homeschool family experiences survival seasons.
Yeah.
And for us, it's illnesses. I think, with having Karis at home last year, but having some in public school, they would bring home all those germs. And so the illnesses can really, derail some things for the day. But I think just during those seasons, it's okay to simplify. I think there was a podcast, a Kolbecast episode I listened to before. Nicole O'Connor was talking about how it's okay to just focus on reading, just read. And that's all, as long as you get through some reading, then, lowering your expectations temporarily is great. And, that's another thing that's a beauty about homeschooling that differs from brick and mortar, is that, you can modify it based on what sort of survival season you're in. And I think children actually learn a great deal from watching their parents adapt faithfully during difficult seasons. So I'm sure as Sarah and Jennifer can speak to the moves. I haven't experienced that, so I have no idea how that's like. But yeah, there's definitely, those different seasons for every family.
Yeah.
We moved around Easter, and so that was a huge transition. I didn't have any kids in live online other than my son taking homeroom, so that wasn't a thing to worry about. But we had to figure out like all of our boxes were coming from Chicago, so everything's on a truck. What do I need to keep out? We needed to do the bare minimum until we had, a place that they could sit in the new house. So you just have to think about that. That's a big roadblock for a lot of families are these moves. Even if they're an expected move, you can never prepare enough for a move to know like exactly how your day is going to go. You can't keep everything out for homeschooling. So I think, survival mode, you've got to get done, what has to be done. Everything else can kind of go on the back burner. And with homeschooling, you're free to kind of change up what your day or your week looks like. You just make adjustments.
I was going to bring up, I don't want to make it strictly to military because I know that there's a lot of families that have a spouse or whoever is in the home that goes away for different reasons. But from like a personal perspective, my husband is gone a lot. Jennifer's husband has been gone a lot. So we've had like year-long deployments, and homeschooling looks different during those years. And homeschooling looks different when he's gone. TDY or somewhere, because now you're thinking about like meals. What's that going to look like? Not even just like the emotions of the kids, but like the day-to-day things. We've lived in areas where it's not so convenient to go grab something from the store, or, there's just like all these different things. So, planning out like, how can I make this as easy as possible on everyone? And how can I allow the space for them to have big emotions and big feelings about missing their dad? Or I've had advising calls like moving, or a parent is away and what that looks like. And so those stumbling blocks can be different because sometimes you have notice and you're able to plan out your meals and like come up with a game plan. Other times they're last minute and it's a more drastic, abrupt thing, and you're giving yourself grace where you are just focusing more on like, hey, we're just going to read and maybe do a couple math problems, and then we're going to go outside and take a walk or do something else, read together as a family. There's so many other things, go to daily mass, go just anything really to help get through that difficult time. I've worked with families where they've lost someone, unfortunately, so I think that's a big thing that can come up that's unexpected. And, obviously educating your child's education is super important, but I think Michelle talks a lot about the whole person, and their salvation is obviously the most important thing. So sometimes their education is going to be kind of, we're going to take a break because this is something that's more important, and that's perfectly okay. And the feelings of guilt that you aren't doing enough or that you're failing, because I think we've all felt that feeling of like, am I failing them? But really there's just different seasons where things come up, and you being there for them and surviving as a family and is the most important thing. That was probably like a long roundabout wordy way to say that, but that was one of those are some hard things that come up for families that I've talked to families about, and then also we've experienced. And it's hard. And the good thing about your advisor is you really can call, and they might be the person that you're not there, you're not like in it with them, and you can be that listening ear for what's going on and help them through that. So
yeah, well said.
Kolbe does a great job, I think, at supporting families in that way.
Yeah, one of the things I see often as an advisor is that parents can become understandably, just focused on assignments and grades and checking all the boxes, all the things. And I think that's one of the great things about not only homeschooling, but also being an advisor is telling families, hey, one of the beautiful things about homeschooling is that we can educate the whole child, and we should be. We can ask questions like, is my child growing in virtue? Are they developing good habits? Are they becoming responsible? Are they growing in their faith? Because that's very important. Are they learning to appreciate truth, goodness, and beauty? All of those things matter. Academics absolutely matter, but they aren't the only measure of success. And one of the things I appreciate about classical Catholic education is that we're not just forming minds, we're helping form the whole person. And that really is the big picture behind it all. And so some seasons that may look like taking a break, like Sarah said, or having some more time to go on some walks or decompress. In other seasons, that might look like academic rigor.
I've had my advisor tell me before, the overall goal is to get your child to heaven, not Harvard. And so I'm just like, man, that's such a great saying. And it's such a good reminder because while education is so important, so is your child and where you're at in life. And so, yeah, shout out to Kristen.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yay, Kristen. We're talking about Kristen Pizzero. She's been on several Kolbecast episodes. We always love having her. Yay. Okay, and as I said, we'll have more to say on kind of approaching and responding to the various challenges that come up along the way, because we know they're there, and just talking through them hopefully will be helpful. So that's on the way. That's coming up. Our show notes will have links to some relevant Kolbecast episodes and links that I mentioned earlier. The Help Center on the Kolbe website has a whole academics and advising section that has several articles that would go right in hand with this conversation today, be very helpful to folks to peruse those and find what is useful to them. Any final thoughts or takeaways at this point to add to all the beautiful thoughts you have shared with us already?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is reach out to your advisor. You're not bothering us. Just feel free, contact us, email, call, anything. We're there for you.
Very grateful for that. Well, Jennifer, it's good to have you back. And Sarah and Michelle, great to meet you for your Kolbecast debut. We'll look forward to having you back to visit with us again here soon. Thanks for spending this time with us and for all the ways you serve the Kolbe families. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad maiorem Dei gloriam.